Hello and welcome to the Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Doyle Heffley of the 122nd District in Carbon County. If you've ever watched a session of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives on TV, you've seen the Speaker of the House presiding at the rostrum. Always present by the Speaker's side is my guest for today's program, Clancy Myer. He is the Parliamentarian for the House, serving in that role for more than 30 years, and he's joining me today to tell us more about his duties. Clancy, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, before we started airing, we talked a little bit about your background and how you got into this position. So if you could just let the viewers know a little bit about yourself and how you became the Parliamentarian of the State House of Representatives.
It was a very unusual situation. I had graduated from law school and entered the U.S. Army in the Judge Advocate General's Corps. I had spent 4 years there and was about ready to be released and was looking for a position. The position of parliamentarian was advertised in my law school placement bulletin. So I applied, really never thinking I had a chance of getting that position as a parliamentarian, but I thought perhaps I could through an impressive interview, I might be able to land some other type of a position with the House. But I was chosen for the position, even though I had no legislative experience and really no experience with the rules of the House. And the first day in the job, we were in session, and I had no predecessor to offer me any instructions. I simply followed the Speaker to the floor of the House and quickly learned on the job. I was fortunate that the Speaker at the time, Kaylee Roy Irvis, was a very patient person, and he taught me a lot about parliamentary procedure during the first few months that I was parliamentarian, and I owe a tremendous debt to him for the background that he was able to give me.
And now the office where the building that my office is located at the Capitol is the Irvis Office Building, yes, named after the former Speaker. Now you have served under both Democratic and Republican
yes,
Speakers of the House.
Yes, I have. And I was very fortunate in that regard, too, having started with the Democratic Speaker and working for a number of Democrats. But then when Matt Ryan became Speaker in 1995, we had previously had a great working relationship together, and he asked me to work for him when he became Speaker. And then since that time, I've been working for Republican speakers.
Well, one of the things that your chief role as parliamentarian is to ensure that the House is following the proper parliamentary procedures, and part of that is a decorum on the House floor, how we conduct ourselves. So when folks turn on the TV, they see the members on the House floor, and one of the things that I always remark to people when they come to visit the House is that to be recognized on the House floor as a member, we must have male members must wear a suit coat or a sports coat and tie in order to be recognized by the Speaker. But maybe you could just talk a little bit about the decorum on the House floor and why we have that decorum in place and how we conduct ourselves.
Decorum is, of course, very important because, and by decorum I mean ranging anything from the appropriate attire on the House floor to the manner in which we speak, to the rules in which we follow. I'll speak first to the attire. Of course, on the floor, male members are required to wear coats and ties. Although they may remove their coats during prolonged debate, but to be recognized to speak on the floor of the House, they must put their coats back on before the Speaker will recognize him. The women members, of course, are required to wear professional attire as well. When we speak in debate, we try to elevate that debate by having the debate proceed to the Speaker. In other words, when a member is speaking, he will address Mr. Speaker, I support this measure because, or Mr. Speaker, I do not like the provision found on page 2, page 3, and thus I cannot vote for the bill. Or if two members are or one member is interrogating another member to try to gain information about what is contained in that another member's amendment or in the bill itself, the debate always goes through the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't understand the provisions on page 2, line 3. We avoid using the members' names on the House floor. If you have to refer to some member, you refer to their district number or the position which they hold as perhaps majority leader or the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, but we do not use members' names because we do not want the debate to become personal.
In this day and age, when you see civility in the political arena, whether it be local township meetings or we even see it at the federal level at times, and I think it's important that, and that's why I'm so thankful that you came on the show today, is just to talk about the civility and how we keep that and all the things that we have in place to keep those discussions not personal, to talk about the issues, because we can vary on issues. And I think one of the points that I find fascinating about the House floor, and even in committee meetings or anything, is the folks that, if I'm working with some of my colleagues on a particular legislative initiative, on one issue, we're all working together. And the next bill that comes up for a vote on the House floor, the person that we were working with may be opposed to this issue, and I could be supporting it, or somebody else could be supporting it. And in that issue, we may be debating against each other. But we're talking about the substantive issues of the bill, and if we can keep that discussion elevated, then at the end the votes are taken, and that's how democracy works. And we don't want to see that breakdown on the House floor of the rules or the decorum, because what would ensue would then be chaos. And that brings me to the next point I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, are the House rules. Now, anybody that has ever participated in any kind of public meeting, whether it be a township meeting or just a Little League meeting, or if you belong to a political committee or anything like that, generally Mason's rules are what's followed in how we conduct business at meetings like that. At the beginning of every legislative session, we vote and adopt the rules to be followed by the House that session, and that's where you come in as a parliamentarian, and your knowledge of the House rules is just phenomenal. You're well respected on both sides of the aisle, obviously having worked for both Republican and Democratic speakers. But talk a little bit about the House rules and just why we have those rules and why certain things are in place.
Well, of course, to address your question of why we have rules, as you intimated previously, it's to prevent chaos. If an organization or any kind of activity doesn't have rules, whether it be baseball or football or rules of the road, you would have utter chaos. You need to know what the guidelines are, what the parameters are for the actions that are taken in order for any type of an activity to function properly. And it's very important when you come to the legislative arena that members and staff are aware of what the rules are and what the guidelines are for submission of amendments, or for guidelines for debate, for the introduction of bills and the process that follows. So all of these items that are contained in the rules, which, as you said, are adopted at the beginning of each legislative session every 2 years, are very, very, very important. In addition to the House rules that we do have supplemental authority. We have Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure, which further expounds upon the House rules, which is used by virtually all the state legislatures throughout the country. And we have also Jefferson's Manual, which is the U.S. House of Representatives Rules and Precedents. Interestingly, Jefferson's Manual was begun by Thomas Jefferson when he was Vice President of the United States back in the late 1790s. Because as Vice President, he would have been President of the Senate, and he developed what we, in the modern world and history of the U.S., the first set of rules for parliamentary procedure. So you can see the history goes way back, and in Pennsylvania it probably goes back even further than that for the rules, with William Penn landed in Chester County in 1682. One of the first items of business was his great laws that were adopted, which also contained the rules for the assembly that he had created. And
this is, as a Pennsylvania House, we are the longest lasting, or the oldest legislative or assembly in the nation, going back to our founder, William Penn.
Correct.
And I think that's a rich history that we have here in the state, and it really is something. When you come to the Capitol, you walk around and you're kind of awestruck with the beauty of the Capitol itself. It's described as a monument to democracy. And we talk a lot about, people will refer to it, when I got here and I learned as a freshman legislator, members would say the institution of the House, the institution of democracy, and how we govern ourselves. And that's why the rules are so important. And that's why respect for the rules and respect for the institution and our form of democracy is so crucial, because when that breaks down, as recently witnessed with some of the things that had happened in the state Senate, when some of the rules weren't maybe adhered to, and you've seen that breakdown. And I think that's why it's so important for the role that you play. And I don't know if many of our viewers watch PCN often, but every day we're in session, you're right next to the speaker, and any questions that we have refers back to the parliamentarian for that decision. So thank you for your service to, obviously, military service to the country, but your service to the state and the Commonwealth, and also as a protector of the institution.
Yes, it is very important, because without the rules and the enforcement of the rules, our entire governmental process would grind to a halt.
I think one of the things that I really admire about the institution is the respect that we do show when there's honor, when there's guests, or if there's military veterans or condolence resolutions. Even if that, no matter how intense the debate can be at times, it's the adherence to the rules, and they try to, we'll all on both sides of the aisle, we'll try to push as far as we can, but knowing that and respecting the democracy, respecting our Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth, and the folks that we represent, in order to follow those rules, I think is very key.
And to add to that, another aspect is how close we become when a member is going through some kind of health adversity, or a member's family is going through that adversity, whether it be a child or a spouse. It seems that the entire membership comes together to support that member, because we become more like a family then, as opposed to being an adversarial group, and that's always impressed me during my time here.
I think that really goes back to the discussion we had earlier about elevating the debate, not making it personal. We all have probably members that we befriend and a little bit more than others, but we respect everybody because we respect that they represent their constituency and the folks that voted them into office on the House floor. Looking back on your career, what are some of your more memorable moments on the House floor?
Actually, probably some of my more memorable moments don't involve legislation as much as they do actions that occurred on the House floor, such as in 1995, when after the election in November of '94, the breakdown was 102 Democratic members elected, 101 Republican members were elected, but one member of the Democratic majority switched to become a Republican. So the Republicans had 102 and the Democrats had 101. And that was also, 95 was also the first year of Tom Ridge's governorship. The pandemonium that sort of broke out on the House floor when we convened in January of 1995 was one of the most momentous days of my life. It bordered on being a bit unruly because of the circumstances, and a process that ordinarily takes an hour, should have taken an hour and a half, took us 5 hours before we were able to swear in all the members of the House and finally elect a speaker to preside during the remainder of that 2-year session.
Clancy, I thank you so much for your time today. But that's all the time we have for today's program. I'm State Representative Doyle Heffley. If you need assistance with any state matters, please feel free to contact me at my local office or through my website. The address and number will be shown in a moment. Thanks for watching, and please join me next time for Legislative Report.